There's so much wind that the wind power has to be sometimes turned off. And I have already prepared a bit in the last few weeks. Now we are wasting time that we could have spent charging the truck. And I want to share a highlight that I think every logistics company will be happy about. This is the absolute highlight. Over here, there's another electric truck, an FH Electric from Maersk.
Und das Allercoolste ist eigentlich,
And the coolest thing,
da steht nochmal ein E-Truck.
there is actually another one.
Hallo. So, die Arbeitswoche beginnt.
My first work week begins, as you saw in the last video, with the first tour on Tuesday morning. And I have already prepared a bit in the last few weeks and built a small map of where the truck-compatible charging stations in Germany are. I've ranked them in A. Charging stations where you can just drive through, B. Charging stations where you have to maneuver but don't have to detach, and C. Charging stations for emergencies. My first tour is from Lier to Löhne, which is about 200 kilometers on the motorway, and we are driving with the Volvo FM Electric, which has a range of about 300 kilometers when loaded, which means it would be perfect if we could charge near the destination. So we will drive to Löhne, unload, and then recharge at this charging station, which I scored as a B because it's actually for regular cars. I haven't been there yet, but then there's a gas station in the picture, which means there's no height limit, and there's enough space in front of it where you can park your trailer in the middle of the night. That's the theory, but we'll soon see if it will work out that way. I will now go to sleep because it's already quite late, and the drive starts very early.
So, einen schönen guten Morgen. Es ist tatsächlich jetzt 2:30 Uhr.
Good morning. It is now 2:30 a.m. I am back here in the yard, and you can see how cool it looks here at night when all the charging stations are switched on. But not all chargers are supplied with electricity, because the main connection is not strong enough yet. And there is our Volvo, which we saw yesterday. Behind it, you can see another one which came overnight. Now at night, you can see all the trucks that were used for short local transportation and arrived one by one in the evening. And there you can see the second Volvo with a huge trailer, which is exactly the same as the one we will be driving. I'm really excited to see how it will work out. Now I'm already on my very first tour from Leer towards Löhne, and we've already completed most of the route. We've already driven almost 200 kilometers, and there's still 41% left in the battery, which means we'll manage to get to the customer without any problems. And on the way back, we'll stop at the charging station that I chose yesterday. In the back, there's a huge flatbed trailer that we hitched up last night. We'll unhitch the trailer at the customer and take a new empty trailer back with us. The consumption will be most likely lower than it is now at 119 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. With this consumption, we have a range of almost exactly 300 kilometers, which is also what the FM is supposed to reach. So it's a really nice first tour, and I hope the charging stop will be as smooth as the ride.
Wir sind beim Kunden angekommen auf dem Betriebshof.
And we arrived at the customers. We parked the trailer near the depot over there that is being prepared for the next load. And here at the back, I just hitched up completely by myself for the first time. That means attaching the brake and compressed air lines and also the level control of the truck so that you can dock easily. We have about 29% battery left, which is more than enough to get to the next car charging station, and we'll see if we can charge the FM Electric there.
Aber es ist auch wirklich ein gigantisch cooles Gespann.
But it is really a gigantically cool truck.
Der macht nicht so einen Lärm.
And it doesn't make so much noise.
So, wir haben es tatsächlich ohne Probleme an die Ladestation geschafft.
We made it to the charging station without any problems.
Ich dachte nämlich, dass hier viel mehr Platz ist.
But I thought there would be a lot more space here. If you have a trailer attached, the space is very limited. But now that we unhitched the trailer and parked it in the back, we can easily charge. If you are fast, then unhitching only takes a minute or two. And now, at the charging station, the truck does not even take up 2 charging spots. It's basically just a big car with a bit of space on both sides, which is brilliant. We've plugged it in at 25% battery, and it's been charging constantly with 200 kilowatts, which is a little limiting, because the Volvo only has a 400 volt system and doesn't get any more power out of the charging station, because they are usually limited to 600 or 500 ampere. This is the real everyday life of a trucker. While on the way back, we got another transport booked in. We're now standing in front of the place and parked the truck, but we are actually not allowed to load anything here, because we need a safety vest and helmet. We do have safety vests, but we did not know that we also need helmets, and because this truck is brand new, nobody has put them inside yet. So officially, we are not allowed to load anything, so the staff is looking for a solution, trying to find some helmets we can use. But that is part of being a trucker as well. Now we are wasting time that we could have spent charging the truck, but that's how it is. The unfiltered everyday life, but I think it's really cool regardless.
Doch, haben wir. auf der 1 Richtung links wahrscheinlich. Ja, klar, das war dann wieder auf der 1 wieder Richtung Oldenburg. Scheiße. Ja. Yes.
Der erste Arbeitstag ist geschafft.
The first day at work is over, and that was actually more straining than expected, especially because of the early wake-up time, but I think you get used to it quickly. The FM Electric is back home, and its sibling has just arrived as well. They are now being recharged overnight at the charging stations. The truck did well today. We had to charge it once, but in total drove almost 500 kilometers. And we were able to combine the charging time with the rest time that we had to take anyway, so it really wasn't a problem. Consumption was 1.17 kilowatt hours per kilometer, so a bit higher, but it was also very windy in the morning, and at the end it was fully loaded with 42 tons, which is the maximum it is allowed to transport.
Und ja, also wirklich cool. Ich bin zum ersten Mal Sattelauflieger gefahren.
Really cool. I really drove a semi-trailer for the first time. It worked without any problems, and I can definitely get used to it. So yes, this was a cool introduction into the world of electric truckers. A new day begins, and we drive the truck from yesterday again. We will now drive on and unload the cement bags that we loaded yesterday. We have already done a quick departure check, and we have also lowered the trailer a bit. We didn't notice that it was a bit high yesterday, but the cool thing about this trailer is that you can easily adjust the height. The tarp is, of course, a bit longer and sticks out underneath, which means you have to tighten it up a bit differently, but it's really cool how modular such a trailer is. You can transport everything with it, and it is better suited in terms of height, because it is not a lowliner, and the Volvo has a relatively high chassis, and we even save a bit of energy. I am excited to see what happens today. We are now driving further north and then wait for announcements from dispatch. The truck is 100% charged, the charging station at the company works perfectly, and we will get going straight away. We are now on the road again. We have completely unloaded the trailer, which means we are now driving back to Leer with an empty trailer, and the trailer will then be preloaded or reloaded at a new customer. So far, the FM Electric is doing great, and one thing that I wanted to show is that it has a retarder lever, like on a combustion engine truck, and it is responsible for the recuperation. And the great thing is that you can set it to different levels. You can set it to auto, to off where the truck is just rolling, and to 1. But you can always leave it on max, which is really practical in city traffic because it gives you that one pedal feeling. So when you are driving with an electric truck, you should always leave on the retarder so you can always recuperate energy, and this way it drives very similar to a regular electric car. Right now the trailer is completely empty, so it accelerates incredibly quickly and is really fun to drive. On this tour, we consume a lot less energy because we drive a lot on country roads, which means that today we are measuring 113 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And you notice it straight away that you get less headwind if you simply drive more slowly. And I want to share a highlight that I think every logistics company will be happy about. When I drove the truck for the first time, I asked whether I should set up the toll device, but the truck doesn't have a toll device. And tolls are an issue in logistics because they were recently increased again with a new CO2 component, but e-trucks are completely exempt from tolls for now. Of course, at some point the toll will also come for e-trucks, although it will be a little bit cheaper. So sooner or later we have to get a toll device in order to bill it, but now the issue is completely irrelevant. You don't have to set anything up, you don't have to set the axles, it doesn't matter at all. For me, as a newbie, that is one less component that I have to worry about, which makes driving even more relaxing. We arrived at the next customer and checked in, but there are 2 trucks ahead of us that still have to be unloaded, so it won't be our turn until 2 p.m., which is in just under 2 hours, and that means I'm going to have my lunch break in the truck. I have enough to eat with me, so it's not stressful at all, but I think you always have to be prepared for waiting times, and if you knew that, you could charge beforehand. Today is not an issue, because we have enough battery anyway. But it will be really exciting in the future to see how you can combine such waiting times with charging the truck. Instead of having to go out of your way to charge the truck, do it the other way round and charge when the truck is being loaded or unloaded. These are the issues that are not as important for short distance transport because you have to stop overnight anyway. But for long distance transport, you definitely need to optimize it so that you don't end up taking longer than a diesel truck. That would be the worst. While we are standing here, waiting, I can briefly show you the multimedia display of the truck. In here, you can configure the charging management, which means you can see the current battery level, the current range, and you can even set a charging limit if you don't always want to charge it to 100%. You can even set a timer for both the interior and the battery temperature. That means if I'm going to drive off one night, maybe it's winter, then I can already preset the temperature, and then climate control will warm everything before I leave. And if I don't care about the driver, then I can only condition the battery, and if it's in the optimal temperature range, we also have lower consumption. Basically, the energy you invest in it will pay for itself later because it is at the optimal temperature right away. The steering can be adjusted in here as well. You can configure the load indicator so that it can show the axle loads, which is very practical when loading. And a few other general things are also supported. For example, the driving time, so you can see how much you're still allowed to drive today. Also, the trip computer is really exciting. In total, yesterday and today, we used 787 kilowatt hours, which are crazy numbers if you usually just drive electric cars. Today, it was more country roads and a bit of city traffic, and theoretically, we would have around 450-kilometer range in the city. So as a driver, you have a good overview, and it helps a bit to display the data in here. Quite cool. My third day as an electric truck driver is now over. Today was not so exciting in terms of the tour. We only drove briefly to unload at a building material store, and then we had to load the trailer again at the other customer. We drove about 130 kilometer and went from 100% to 61%. We are now charging up at the depot, so it was relatively unspectacular, but I personally learned a lot as a driver today about securing loads, how you can secure different materials, what tricks there are, that you usually only open the left tarp, and the forklifts then use the corresponding long fork to unload the entire truck. So you just have to pull the tarp up once. And also how to manage these huge ratchet straps and edge protectors. It was really helpful for me because I will need all of that out in the field. And Marvin, who I was with, explained everything to me really well. It was really fun and interesting to talk to all of these people involved, the warehouse staff at the customers, the forklift drivers, because they all have their own pro-electric or anti-electric opinion. Actually, relatively little pro-electric, but there is also a lot of curiosity. A forklift driver asked what kind of truck is that, and drove past it 3 more times, always asking more things. How far does it actually go? What kind of performance does it have? There are lots of curious people who want to know more. So that is really encouraging, and I can already see the argument that always comes up when I talk to them.
Die Kasseler Berge.
The Kassel Mountains. They are an area in the middle of Germany where it is very mountainous and where even normal trucks have to struggle a lot. This Volvo is more for short and medium distances with its range, but there are a few trucks that can also travel longer distances. But so far, it has been running without any problems. The Volvo drives like a car, totally comfortable and a lot of fun. And I am excited to see what else I will experience this week and when I will drive the tour alone for the first time. But so far, it has all been running without any problems, and I am looking forward to what's to come. Good morning from the far north on my 4th day. Today, something very special. We are doing the same tour that we did before, where we charged at the Shell petrol station at Shell Recharge. But now we are using a different strategy. We are doing 2 charging stops, which means a very short one, right now in the morning for 15 minutes at this great charging park that I have already been to. It is basically a dedicated truck charging park with a lot of space, which means the trailer can stay on. And it just looks incredibly cool how the Volvo FM with the big trailer is standing here and is charging. And then the plan is to see if everything works out in the afternoon, to do a second charging stop, also at the station where you don't have to unhitch the trailer. This way I can compare the 2 tours with each other and see if 2 stops is more pleasant than 1. And the exciting thing about this Volvo is that it has a large battery, but only about 70% of the battery is usable. So despite the high charge level of 83%, it has almost the full charging power at 216 kilowatt. So you can drive a few kilometers, take the first rest break, and then plug in the vehicle and still recharge a relatively large amount of energy. And that's actually very practical because you are making the most of the break time. And we have a little trick that we use today, because as a trucker, you have to take a 45-minute break after 4.5 hours of driving, but you can split it up, which means you can take a 15-minute break first, and then another 30-minute later, which means 2 charging stops, are actually not that bad, even if they sound bad. But this way you can integrate it nicely into everyday life. One point why theory differs from practice. We were on the road for the last few days, and always had around 110 to 120 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer. But now we drove with headwind in the middle of the morning. Total rain chaos, and the consumption was actually over 165 kilowatt hours. Hopefully this will settle down a bit later when we've been on the road for a bit, but it just shows that the range can quickly drop. I'm still optimistic, but that's just everyday life that can happen.
Und wir haben noch nicht mal Winter.
And it's not even winter yet, so these are practical experiences that are incredibly important to be able to collect now. Driving times and rest periods are now relevant for the first time because I hope you can see it clearly here. I still have 44 minutes that I am allowed to drive, but to the destination it's still 45 minutes. So I have to see if I can drive out a few minutes of buffer, or the traffic will get a bit better, but that is a kind of introduction to what I can expect in the future where every minute will count. And now, 15 minutes before my break, the display shows me an information that I am allowed to drive 15 more minutes. And we managed to drive out a little time, so we have a 3-minute buffer at the moment. But we will definitely need these when we park at the charging station. It's an ARL truck stop with ARL Pulse charging stations for cars, and I'm curious if we are able to charge without unhitching. We arrived at the ARL truck stop, and I managed to park the Volvo with the trailer on one side so that the normal electric cars can still leave on the other side. This is the absolute highlight. Over here, there's another electric truck, an FH Electric from Maersk.
Und das Allercoolste ist eigentlich,
And the coolest thing,
da steht nochmal ein E-Truck.
there is actually another one.
Hallo.
They are charging here, but made it more complicated. They unhitched the trailers and put them back there. We were a bit lazier, so exactly those 2 trailers are from them, and we're standing here now. If the charging station had the longer cable, it would be a bit more relaxing, but right now it works out. And keyword driving and rest times, we managed it exactly to the minute. I'm also glad that I didn't have to keep maneuvering around, because then it would have been too much, but sometimes you have to be lucky. We're now taking a break for at least 30 minutes because we already did 15 before, but it will probably be 45 minutes, and now we're having lunch, and then we'll see. It's really cool up here in Ostfriesland. There's so much wind that the wind power has to be sometimes turned off. Energy abundance is a great thing. Day 4 is over. Today was really a highlight with the various charging stations that we tested. And tomorrow it's going to be really exciting because I'm actually allowed to do the very first tour completely alone, which I think is kind of crazy for me in the first week. And yes, I'm excited to see how it goes. Today was very exhausting. I started again at 3 a.m. or even a little earlier. Tomorrow the same time, so it's really a hard job, but I'm excited to see how the first week ends tomorrow. So I've basically unbuckled the whole trailer, unsecured all the pallets so that they can be easily unloaded. And earlier I had my first real test because there was a second truck next to it and it was really tight. You had sun in the rearview mirror. The rearview mirror was still dirty. You couldn't really see anything, but I somehow managed it. And that was tricky because it wasn't a trailer, it was a truck. And if you crash other people's trucks, there will be double trouble. But luckily, nothing happened. The tour is slowly coming to an end. I secured the trailer completely myself, loaded it at the customers, and went through the paperwork all by myself, and it was all actually quite doable. We are now at 40.3 tons, but that is not a problem because an electric truck can weigh 42 tons, and the axle loads are also okay, so yes, fully loaded, we still have 48% battery, but only 56 kilometers to go. I was even thinking about unloading straight away, but there is no one there on Friday afternoon, so no stress. I'll just drive there, and that will be the first trip that I'll be driving on Monday. So the first week of electric trucking is actually coming to a good end. It was a bit of a learning experience, and otherwise a big thank you goes to Tobias Bruns, my successor at ChargeX, who made me a really cool trucker playlist so that I can enjoy driving here. And yes, I've settled in really well. I can use everything well. The Volvo is really, really pleasant to drive, very easy to use with the sat-nav. So yes, I'm happy to go on. And so far everything is going as I imagined. Let's see if it stays that way. Have a nice weekend and see you next time.